The Chicago Bulls season starts off in disappointing fashion, or I should say the Chicago Bulls new year starts off in disappointing fashion, like we expected anything else from this team. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, we're going to take a look at and ask the question, is Billy Donovan long for the Chicago Bulls? We're going to get into all that and more on today's Locked On Bulls.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. I'm Haize, host and creator of Chicago Bulls Central and Chicago Bears Central YouTube pages and podcasts. And, we like you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Bulls. But let's get into it for today. I want to start off with the Bulls and how they started off this year for Bulls fans. And they started off by giving us one of the worst performances that you can see from a team for the Chicago Bulls in this game, right? Against the Washington Wizards last night. And there's a reason why I did not have the mental capacity to talk about the Chicago Bulls twice last night. I had to take some break and step a little bit away from it. That loss last night by the Bulls was one of the most disgusting performances I have seen from a team in quite a while. The Bulls faced off against a team that came into that game. They won 5 games, and 4 of those wins came against 2 teams, right? They've only beat 3 teams, despite only having 5 wins on the entirety of the season. Well, now the Chicago Bulls become the 4th team. And this was a game in which the Bulls only held a lead for 2 minutes in this game. The Washington Wizards led this game basically from start to finish. This was a piss-poor effort by the Bulls defensively. It was an even less inspired defensive effort by the Chicago Bulls. And you look at this game, and there's plenty of blame to go around between the Bulls' inability to hit shots, 29.8% from three-point line overall from the Bulls, yet they still took almost 50 three-pointers in this game. Keep in mind, before this season, the Bulls had never had a game in which they took 50 three-pointers. Every game in which the Bulls have taken 50 three-pointers has come in this season. And in a game where you're shooting less than 30%, in the first half of this game, the Chicago Bulls were shooting 26% from 3. Let you go on to take 47 shots in this game, 47 3-point shots in this game. It makes no sense, no logical sense. So yes, the performance on the court was piss poor, but then also you got to look at Billy Donovan and this coaching staff. Are you so inept coaching? Are you so locked in to coaching one particular way that when you see your team struggling, you can't have the thought process to say, hey, we maybe need to push it in the paint. Maybe we need to run some simple pick and roll. Maybe we need to do something a little bit different because our 3-point shots are not falling. And that is going to continue to be one of the biggest Achilles heels for this team. Because at some point, like, you just have to be able to coach something differently. And the Bulls do not attempt to do that by any stretch of the imagination at all. And it continues to bite the Bulls in the butt. All right. And the performances were sad all across the board yesterday. So in a game where you're facing off against the worst team in the NBA and the Washington Wizards, they're giving up almost 125 points per game. You only score 107 points, and yet you give up 125 points to them. That is an embarrassing effort. That's a piss-poor effort, and that's just sad when it comes down to it. And that's what it keeps going to this team. And, I don't want to argue with Bulls fans. It is what it is. But I have to keep questioning the fandom, the part of the fandom that really thinks that this Bulls team is on its path and its way to do anything meaningful this season. And yet another season being in the middle is loading. Another season of being stuck in the middle, and mainly because of this front office inability to do anything. And it's like the problem is, right, with the Bulls, and specifically offensively. Defensively, we knew. Everybody talked about how bad the Bulls were going to be defensively. We knew we were going to be bad. Billy Donovan knew we were going to be bad defensively. But in trying to get up with the times and take more three-pointers, we're trying to play a faster pace. That's all fine and dandy. But how do you lose the simplicities of the game of basketball? That's what you got to ask yourself, right? And at the end of the day, and it's not just about keeping the pick or not when it comes to this Bulls team either, I don't think. This isn't just about that, right? This team isn't designed and trying. It'd be, I could get with oh, well, the Bulls are clearly trying to keep the pick. If Modest was playing in crunch time, he was not. We went with THT over him. We went with Javon Carter over him in the fourth quarter. All these players play more minutes than Modest Vucevic in the fourth quarter. It'd be different if Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips were playing a bunch in the fourth quarter or in developing. So this team isn't even there. If they keep their pick, it's only going to be a byproduct of their stupidity. It's not going to be a byproduct of any type of design by this front office. That's where we're at right now. Now, maybe that changed. Maybe something happens where I change my outlook on that. But right now, it isn't. And we'll get into that more in the second segment of the show. But just to focus on this game, Zach LaVine, 12 of 20 from the field for 32 points, 3 assists, 3 turnovers in this game. And that's another story that's a big story in this game. The Chicago Bulls had 15. I'm sorry. No, I was undercutting them some. 20 turnovers they gave up in this game. And off those 20 turnovers, the Washington Wizards were able to convert that to 33 points off turnovers. And it's the effort. When you watch this team and you see the consistent lack of effort, the consistent lack of execution, the consistent lack of design, it's something that's clearly evident with this team. And that is going to get us to the title of today's episode when we're talking about, will Billy Donovan last another season? We'll get into that here a little bit more in a second. But, it's just, I don't understand how a team that has already frustrated the Bulls so much has continued to just frustrate fans even more, right? And it's really disgusting, to be 100% honest, the performance that we continue to see from this Bulls team. And everybody, listen, I'm not one to give anybody in this type of loss. There's no passes given out to anybody. Yes, Zach LaVine had 32 points, and he was the one Bull that was trying to make some things happen. I think he was the only Bull that ended with a positive plus minus. Him and Modest Vucevic. But Patrick Williams, 7 points. 7 points against the Washington Wizards for Patrick Williams. 7 points. Inexcusable. Especially when you see that your team needs a bucket. Nikola Vucevic, 12 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists in this game, but his defense was god-awful and trash. Kobe White, people were asking, and why I was so hesitant to say that Kobe White was coming out of a slump, because of games like this. 5 for 11, 4 turnovers, 17 points, 6 assists, 2 rebounds. Him and Josh Giddey were terrible last night against the Washington Wizards. And I know the Giddey fans are going to come in here and they're going to try to glaze and they're going to try to say things like, oh, but Josh Giddey, if he was able to run the offense more, he played like crap. He played like utter crap. And he's not the only one. I'm not blaming this loss on any one person, because the team in totality played like absolute crap last night. When a 5-win team who is actively tanking, actively trying to be bad to get Cooper Flagg, actively trying to just not be a good basketball team, when they come out and show more heart than you do from the tip off, that's organizational incompetence. It's just bad. Winton with a great question here. I don't know what's going on with Restream. At this point, you seriously got to ask yourself, do the Bulls even give a dang at anymore? I mean, that's a big question there. A fair question, Winton. You can make your team a more modern style offense team, but you have to view your personnel to see what type of modern style offense you can run. That is just my belief. Well, I think it's not even just about running a more modern style, but you still need to keep in some of the things that are just the backbone of how basketball works. We don't run any off-ball actions or pick and rolls at all. The Old School Magic says I question the part of the fandom that doesn't want to keep the pick. I mean, listen, everybody has different strokes for different folks, I guess. Everybody has a different view on what they like to see the team do with that pick, or how much they like to see the team maintain or try to keep the pick. But when it all comes down to it, we may not have to worry about it. The Chicago Bulls, the Philadelphia 76ers are coming, right? They did lose last night, which is the only thing that kept the Chicago Bulls technically in the play-in right now in that 10th seed. Had they won last night, the Bulls would have been out of it. So the Philadelphia 76ers, who are playing much, much better, they are coming for that spot. And the question is that, listen, it's going to turn into a battle for the 10th seed between the Chicago Bulls and the Detroit Pistons. That's what is shaping up to happen here. And listen, the Pistons have a lot more avenues for them to lock in and improve, they want to do that, than the Chicago Bulls, in my personal opinion. But we're going to get into and ask the question, where are the Bulls really headed? Which is something that a lot of you guys are alluding to. But first, we got to get into a message from Game Time. The holidays may be over, but it's still the perfect time to make memories. And there's no better way to bring people together than at live events. Whether it's a big game, a concert, or comedy show, Game Time makes it easier than ever to find great tickets on amazing prices. With their new feature, Game Time Picks, you can skip the endless scrolling and get right to the best deals on incredible seats. It's all about saving you time and money while finding the perfect tickets. Plus, you can use the super deal option to score top-notch seats on unbeatable prices. The Game Time also gives you features that make buying tickets stress-free, like all-in pricing, no surprise fees at checkout, and a panoramic seat view, so you can know exactly what your view will look like before you buy. And with the lowest price guarantee, you always get the best deal, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. We're Locked On Bulls coming up next. All right, my Bulls fans. So the question that everybody was asking at the start of the season, the question that we're going to be asking the majority of the season, there's not going to be a clear answer anytime soon. We are nearing that 35-game deadline that we reportedly heard that the Bulls were using as their evaluation period this season. But here's the thing that I want to ask. Where are the Bulls really headed, right? And the reason why I ask that is because depending on the segment of the fan base that you ask, you'll get a different answer. There are some Bulls fans that for some reason are really confident that this team is going to make a run and get into playoff contention. There are some Bulls fans that want to see the Bulls trade things, trade players, assets, whatever it is, to stay in the bottom 10 to try to keep their pick, right? That's kind of the focus for a lot of Bulls fans, and that's fair as well. But in reality, what are the Bulls telling us by the way that they're performing right now? To me, I still see a team that could contend for the final spot in the play-in tournament. I'm just going to be honest with that, right? They're a team that you can see, depending on how consistently they can beat the bottom feeders of the NBA, they can be there. They can get enough wins to be in playoff contention. I mean, play-in contention, I'm sorry, right? But then you got to ask yourself, what do you really gain from that, right? And it, like I said kind of earlier, and I alluded to this earlier, it would be different if Modest was getting 28 minutes, if Kobe, Ayo, Julian, Dalen, Josh Giddey, if these guys were the reason why the Chicago Bulls were in that play-in contention. But let's be clear here. Despite a recent dip by Nikola Vucevic, despite missing some games with injury by Zach LaVine, despite coming back from a serious knee injury in Lonzo Ball, the Bulls are still primarily uplifted. The players that are having the most positive impact for this team are still the veterans, right? Are still those guys, the two players in Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic, who are 30 and older. And you have to ask yourself, where are we headed, right? And this is the question that as a fan base, we've been asking ourselves for the longest. But one of the biggest problems in this is that the people who should be asking that question, the front office, seems content with just staying in the middle. And that's why it seems like as of right now, based off the information that we've had, is that the Bulls are headed right to the middle again. Now, I want to be clear here, right? Even in being in the middle of the pack, right now, let me bring up Tankathon real quick. I think the Bulls still have the 10th worst odds in the NBA, ninth. So if the season stopped right now, the Chicago Bulls would have the 9th best odds in the lottery, meaning they could still keep their pick. They could still get knocked out. If two teams jump them in the lottery, they could be down to number 11. They can go as low as 4 spots down, number 13. But the Bulls still are in that area to be able to keep their top 10 pick. And that is, and the concern that I have about this, and I've never said this on any show, now Bull Central, not Locked On Bulls yet. My biggest concern is that AK and Eversley are hoping for luck. meaning that they are hoping that they can keep this team together and that they can try to win over the course of the season, maybe not make the play-in, maybe get eliminated from the play-in, and somehow through the basketball gods, keep their top 10 pick with keeping this roster together. And in some instances, I look at that and say, if that does happen, is that not the best of both worlds? Like, let's just say this. If the Bulls keep Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic, keep Kobe White, keep Ayo, keep Lonzo Ball, keep Josh Giddey, keep Patrick Williams, keep Julian Phillips, Dalen Terry, and they still wind up with a top 10 pick, and you get to add a top 10 pick to this team, maybe next year we're not talking about contending for a play-in spot. But the problem with that is that would once again be the Chicago Bulls not picking a direction. And I really think that they would then use that luck to try to paint it as if this was some masterful idea by this front office, when in reality, that would just be, like I said, that would be the basketball gods looking upon the Chicago Bulls. Because that is a possibility here. I want to be clear with everybody. That is still a possibility. Now, that's not that's a little bit too close for my liking, and that's still not picking a direction. And I think ultimately, more so than the result, this front office has to pick a direction for the team. You cannot be directionless and still reach a goal. How do you reach a goal if you have no direction? So I want to be clear there. This is not like to paint it as some, oh, well, we're going to be fine overall. But it would be the most AK and Eversley thing to do, to somehow keep a top 10 pick without doing anything. Now, one could say, all right, Haize, you got a great bevy of talent at that point. Maybe we get Kaman Malowik here. Maybe he can be Vooch's backup, or maybe we draft him and then we can move Vooch. Whatever happens. Then you got Jalen Smith, Vooch, Adama Sanogo, whatever it is, right? But it's so much. It's just favor tends to go to the teams that pick something and then they fight towards that. And overall right now, this team isn't fighting towards anything. They're just surviving and barely doing that. So when we ask like things like, where are the Bulls headed right now? Unfortunately, the answer that I have to you guys is I have no idea. And that's the scariest thing about being a Bulls fan right now, is that there's no idea in where this team is realistically headed, because the people at the top that are supposed to be guiding this, do you have faith in them? Do you have faith in this front office to execute even the most meandering of goals that they have? I don't. So I don't know. And say what you will about any other Bulls front office, right? When Paxson was just the GM, we were clearly going younger, developing and fighting and developing through trying to win, right? What was it? It was like 12 out of 15 years we made the playoffs or something like that. We were clearly trying to. Now, there was some disappointment. There were some misses in there. Tyrese Thomas, there was definitely some misses in there, right? But they were clearly trying to develop something with a younger core. And then once they did have that, they went out and added veterans like a John Salmons. They went out and got guys like Carlos Boozer. They went out and got guys like Paul Gasol. They went out and got guys, right? But this team right now isn't even doing that well. So it's just really unfortunate that this team just still 4 years in lacks direction. And it's so hard in the NBA to make forward progress when you don't have a direction. And that's what we continue to see with this team day in and day out, is the lack of direction becomes even more louder and louder and clearer the longer we go without having that direction. And so it's up in air. Right now, our direction is where the wind blows us and where luck takes us. That's where our direction is. And until we stop relying on that and get more proactive about choosing a direction, we're going to be having the same conversations around this Bulls team for the next 3 or 4 years. with the hope that maybe Modest turns into a star, with the hope that maybe we eventually get lucky in the draft and draft somebody that turns into a star. It's just really, really freaking disappointing. But you know what else is disappointing? What else is disappointing is the coaching. And we're going to talk about Billy Donovan and how much longer will Billy Donovan last as the head coach of the Chicago Bulls. We're going to get into that right after a message from FanDuel. All right, the NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to join in on the excitement of the regular season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a chance to finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's right. Just bet $5, and if you win, you're walking away with $250,000 in bonus bets to play with. I love using FanDuel because they make betting so much fun. From picking which players will score touchdowns to guessing total team points, there's always a way to add some thrill to the game. Whether it's the big plays or the small moments, FanDuel has you covered. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com today to join. That's FanDuel.com, where you can get started with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. More Locked On Bulls coming up next. All right, Bulls fans. As always, I thank you guys for joining, sticking it in with us. By the way, do your boy a favor. Go to LockedOnDaily.com and sign up for the daily Locked On Bulls newsletter. It'll get sent right to your inbox. You ain't got to go anything. You can read it right from your email. I know you all signed into your emails on your phone. You get a daily article from me that's going over things with the Chicago Bulls. And unfortunately, some of those things that we go over are a little dramatic because this team is dramatic and this team sucks. But one of the aspects of this team that a lot of people kind of agree on, and I won't say that everybody agrees on any one thing with this team because, again, it's the Chicago Bulls. But when you look at this team, coaching has definitely been something that has limited this team. Shout out to my boy Winton, who's in the chat. Winton is one of the biggest guys with that conversation on Billy Donovan. And while I'm not blaming everything on Billy Donovan, I want to be clear there. In no way am I saying every single thing and limitation that this team has comes down to Billy Donovan. That's why I worded this segment the way that I did, is will Billy Donovan last another season? Will he even want to? Like, when you look at Billy Donovan, and he talked, and the thing that kind of got me started on this down this path of wanting to have this discussion is Billy Donovan talked about Modest Vucevic and his minutes. And to paraphrase here, he alluded to the fact that, hey, I want Vucevic to play, but at the same time, I have a duty to try to win basketball games. So there's going to be times where I'm playing Torrey over Modest Vucevic in a key moment because, basically because whether Vucevic is not playing well or he's missing some of the rotations. And, it's been a lot made over the fact that part of the reason the Bulls even got a chance to have Billy Donovan is that Billy did not want to go through a rebuild with the OKC Thunder. Now, looking back at that, all you had to do was wait 2 years, right? Had he just waited 2 seasons, he would have been from rebuild to contending with what the OKC Thunder team eventually ended up doing with their moves and the talent that they have there, how they developed all of that. And as this Bulls team goes to a younger focus, right? He's already playing Dalen Terry. He's playing Julian Phillips. These guys are playing over vets like THC, Torrey Craig, Javon Carter pretty consistently, right? But then it's that itch that when you're in the third quarter of a 5-point game, Billy Donovan's looking at the bench. He sees Modest. He sees Torrey Craig. He's going to go Torrey Craig, right? And Billy Donovan kind of admitted as well, it's like, hey, I want Modest to get minutes, and yeah, some of those minutes could be important for him, but we're trying to win basketball games. So the question is this thing eventually going to lead to where Billy Donovan looks at this and says, I don't want to play this balancing act anymore. I do not want to have to balance. I don't want to have to balance. Should I play the young guy and develop them, or should I try to go what I think is best for the win and play a veteran? I don't want to have to make that decision, right? Much less if the Bulls look at it and think that Billy Donovan is making the right decisions in those moments. How much longer will Billy Donovan realistically last as the head coach of the Chicago Bulls? That's a question that I have here. And in all honesty, I still think, no matter what all the signs point to, that this front office is still very much attached to Billy Bubblegum Donovan. It's the writing's on the wall. And I think it would have to take. And, I get it that people are like, why don't the Bulls move on from Billy? When are we going to move on from Billy? And I truly think it's going to have to take Billy Donovan and go to the front office and say, hey, I think it's time. I think it's time that we go a different route. I really think that. And it sucks to say that, but I don't think that the Bulls, the front office, between them and the ownership, have the balls to move on from Billy Donovan, to fire Billy Donovan. I don't think that they do. Now, again, I'm not blaming everything on Billy Donovan. A large part of this is AK and Eversley and the way that they've constructed this roster. Absolutely. They're a big part, probably the bigger part in this. But how much longer will Billy Donovan last as the head coach of the Chicago Bulls? That's one of the storylines that I'm very interested to watch as this season unfolds and future seasons unfold for the Chicago Bulls, and I guess we'll see. But as always, guys, thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Bulls. Make sure you guys are following us at Locked On Bulls. You can follow me personally at CEO Haize. Locked On Bulls is free and available on every podcasting app and platform of your choice, as well as YouTube, the Odyssey app, Amazon Fire TV. Basically, anywhere you want to see this lovely and beautiful face, you can do so. You just gotta just search it up, man. But yeah, that's my time for today. Love you guys. Go Bulls. You already know See Red. I'll see you guys tomorrow as well. Let's gear up for Derrick Rose night. Peace, y'all.